How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthus here and welcome back to another video. So we've had a new PTR update and we've had a few new juicy little things for our professions. Yes, there are some new patterns slowly floating into the game, so I thought what I'd do today, now that almost every profession has had a little bit of something, is I thought I'd do a bit of an overview of exactly what's changed up until this point. Basically giving you guys that haven't really been keeping up to date, which I don't blame you, there's lots of changes, one video, one place to check out so that you know exactly what's gone on so far. Now, of course, the things to note with this is that it is always subject to change. This is the PTR. We see things changing on a frequent basis. So the best way to stay up to date is either get your characters over to the PTR to have a look yourselves, or, of course, the smart way, hit that subscribe button. As soon as new things come out, I'll do my utmost to make sure that you guys know about them so that you can be prepared for when patch 9.1 launches. But so today we're going to take it in some sort of order. I'll leave timestamps down below for this one, for each individual profession that we look at, so that you can just jump to the ones that are relevant to you if you wish. This will probably be a slightly longer video. Hope you enjoy it. Firstly though, we're going to start with the default stuff that's generic to a lot of the professions. We're going to talk about the crafter's marks for a second. The crafter's marks in this update have changed again. Yes, they have. For the most part, there was a lot of feedback that crafter's mark 3 providing a item level of 180 felt a bit low. It's already possible through just world quests and very casual based content to get item level 200 or thereabouts without stepping foot into Mythic Plus or raids or anything of those nature. And so Blizzard have heard this, and Blizzard have made some slight tweaks and changes. So now the Crafter's Mark 3, which for reference you'll be able to gather Crafter's Mark 3 from the new faction, the Death's Advance. Is it Death's Advance? Yeah, the Death's Advance. When you reach Honoured with those guys, you can purchase it from the Quartermaster. You're going to get Honoured really quickly. Honoured is going to come from doing your daily quests out in Korthia. There's a really strong likelihood that the raid will give you experience with the Death's Advance as well. There'll be lots of activities and everything will be primarily focused towards that content. So getting Honoured and getting access to your Crafter's Mark 3, if you are somewhat active in the endgame content, will come to you very quickly. The first iteration of the Crafter's Mark 3 on the PTR was item level 180 gear. And like I said, people considered that to be a little bit low. Blizzard have listened and Blizzard have made a few tweaks to it, and they have increased the item level to 200. This is going to mean a few things. Any gear that you currently acquire through things like world quests is almost going to be on the same level as crafted gear the second we step into patch 9.1. This kind of takes away a lot of the requirement for some people to actually try and, keep their alts up. Considering we're going to step straight in, catch up gear through crafting is going to be 200, and it's going to put crafting in a really good position. The likelihood is your main characters are going to be way above this anyway, but anybody that's maybe switching their class, leveling up a new character come patch 9.1 is going to be very interested in picking up an entire set of gear that is used by making these. These are going to be really good. I think 200 is a nice sweet spot. We'll have to see how it plays out in future. You may have also noticed there's the Crafter's Mark of the Chained Isle. This was previously called the Prestigious Crafter's Mark. They have decided to change the name of it. It makes a little bit more sense, the Chained Isle. Korthia is attached to the moor by some big old chains, and to the Torghast Tower as well, I believe, so it's a fitting name. They have changed this as well. Originally on the PTR, this was a item level 200 piece of gear, and people were like, you can equip one piece of 200 gear? Meh, not bothered. Blizzard have upped the item level on this as well. This is now a single, you may notice it says unique equipped, so you are only going to be able to equip one piece of crafter's gear that it is being made with this, but it is going to be an item level 230. That's really juicy. This is going to mean that when those people get access to the Crafter's Mark of the Chained Isle optional reagents and start making gear with it, it's going to be good. Just look at the auction house as it stands currently. How much do those 206 226 mythic raid BOEs go for currently. That's a ridiculously high price. Now, of course, everything is going to move forward, but I mean, this crafted gear, if you can get your hands on it, is going to be very, very lucrative, I think. The method of acquisition of this is still a bit up in the air, though. There was originally a quest called Table of Discontent. You can see it here. This was picked up in Korthia and requires you to pick up 250 intentionally scattered pages. Now, just in the latest PTR update, it's had this DNT tag applied to it, which I don't know exactly what it stands for. I believe it stands for Do Not Track, maybe indicating that this is a quest that maybe Blizzard are planning on changing. We'll have to see. So unfortunately, I can't give you an exact method of acquisition for this one, but trust me, as and when crafters get their hands on this, the gear that you're going to be able to churn out from it is going to be very attractive to a lot of people. Even main characters are going to be interested in buying a single piece of this for their gear. Probably it'll likely be a requirement before you step into the new raid to have at least one piece of crafter's gear, because a good chunky item level 230 piece of gear goes a long way at the start of a patch. So that's the sort of the generic stuff out the way. That's the crafter's marks. The crafter's marks apply to most of the professions in the game. Any piece of gear that can be crafted can be used these, and we'll talk a little bit about some special cases as we dive into each of the professions. But so first then, let's take a little bit of a look at leatherworking. Let's see what love leatherworking has had in general. So far, leatherworking has had a few items. We talked in our last video about the Pallid Bone Flute and the Pallid Oracle Bones. These are two new toys that leatherworkers are going to get their hands on. They get them pretty quickly in the leveling process of leatherworking, so these are kind of just fillers, really. They are bind on use though, so you can actually, in theory, sell these on the auction house. They don't do a huge amount. They're really cheap to make. I can't imagine they're going to be a big goal maker, but it's just, you know, it's something else to be crafting whilst with your leatherworker. In the most recent update, we've had this elusive pet treat. This, once again, is another toy. Leatherworkers seem to be getting their hands on all of the toys at the moment. Drops a tiny bone-wielding golem for your companion pet to chase around for 30 seconds. This is another one. You pick this up pretty quickly whilst you're doing the leveling. I think in fact, no, I tell a lie. You don't get this pattern until you hit skill 100. So you're going to have to max out your leatherworking before you get this. It's bind on pickup, so there's no real goal-making opportunity here. I did make one, so I guess we can use it and see what it does. Let's use this real quickly. Oh, I haven't got a companion pet out. Whatever. It's this basic little toy. Drop a tiny bone-wielding golem for your pet to chase around. It's just a cool little flavoury thing. But that's all that leatherworking's really had. Obviously, the crafter's marks that we talked about. So let's take a quick look at jewelcrafting. Jewelcrafting, crafter's marks, as we know previously. In relation to jewelcrafting, I think rings might become a very popular choice for the 230 piece of gear. You have 2 ring slots. Equipping a high crafted ring, in past expansions at least, has always been a very favourable option by raiders, mythic pluses, that sort of stuff. People engaging in that endgame content, simply because you have 2 ring slots. It's less likely that you're going to get a drop from the raid that's going to instantly replace this. So if you're going to be spending any gold or investing in any crafted item, I would imagine the rings to be kind of a hot go-to item, I would imagine. If we take a little look to the Deadly Sinvir rings, for example, set item level, yeah, you have the ability, although the interface is completely goofed at the moment, you have the ability to use these new crafter's mark of the chained isle on the crafted rings. So a ring with a guaranteed socket and at item level 230, yeah, I would imagine jewel crafters are going to see some pretty good prices for these crafted pieces of gear. Just quickly, whilst we're on that topic, I suppose I should reiterate that the crafter's mark of the chained isle, the materials to craft it are different on every profession. we don't really think that these are the final materials or the final material quantities. So what you see here is almost guaranteed to change. This feels way, way, way too cheap for materials to craft something that's going to be, at least when we step into patch 9.1, one of the most sought after crafted pieces of gear. I expect these things to change. Outside of the crafter's mark stuff and rings and that sort of things, we have the two new stone statues. These appeared in the most recent PTR. We have the shaded stone statue and a porous stone statue. In my opinion, this just feels like a bit of a sink for all of the spare shaded and porous stone that's kicking about. If you look on the auction house right now, that stuff is basically free. There's not really any good use for it in the game right now, so it's apparent that Blizzard are trying to find a good use for these extra sort of cheap materials. What do these do though? They place a porous stone statue on the ground where it will heal you for a short time before the power fades. You pick this one up at Shadowlands Jewelcrafting 50, and the shaded stone one using the rarer materials, you pick this up at 100. Now, we don't have the ability to craft these. They're not on the trainer right now, so I can't make them to see exactly what the heal is. My guesstimation though, and it seems relatively logical, that the shaded stone statue is either going to last a lot longer or is going to heal you for a more significant amount. I would imagine these would be pretty high in demand by people that engage in PvP. You drop one of these down whilst you're doing an arena, for example. It's a free hot on you effectively, and they're relatively cheap, so people will be quite willing to spam these, I would imagine. But it's nice to see an extra little bit of flavour for the jewel crafters out there. Outside of that, that's jewel crafting and leatherworking sorted. Let's now jump over to enchanting. Okay then, so we're on our enchanter. As it stands currently, there's not been a lot of love thrown Enchanting's way. I do hope they try and get some more stuff, but they have in the most recent PTR update obtained this animated, I guess, animated leash. It's once again another toy. You might be sensing a bit of a pattern here. Blizzard obviously felt there was not enough toys in the game, so they're giving each profession their own toy. This, interestingly though, at least as it stands at the moment, is bind on pickup, so there's no gold making opportunity from this. It's just something that you will craft whilst you're leveling up. By all understanding, you pick this up pretty early in your enchanting journey. You pick it up, I believe, at enchanting 40, but once again, it's something that's not actually on the trainers right now, meaning that we can't actually craft these or test these or see what they do in any more detail than just a simple tooltip for now. We would hope that enchanting is going to get a little bit more love. The profession feels in a bit of an awkward spot right now. The only real use for it in any great demand. I mean, enchants, let's be honest, enchants are super cheap, super easy to make by virtually everybody. If you've tried selling enchants this expansion so far, you'll know that the profit in them is very, very minimal unless you go seriously far out of your way to acquire your soul dust, your sacred shards, and of course your eternal crystals as cheap as possible. This is just something else to add to the collection, I suppose. Not a huge amount to say with enchanting. That's pretty much all I've got for this one. Let's move on to tailoring next. Okay, so we're here on the tailor, and things look very similar as enchanting. Not a huge amount to report yet. The tailors obviously have their, considering they're a main gear crafting class, they're going to make all the cloth gear. They of course have the crafter's marks and the mark of the chained isle. As it stands at the moment, it's interesting to see that at least as it stands right now, these crafter's mark of the chained isle are going to require the enchanted lightless silk, meaning that a tailor is not by themselves going to be self-sufficient when it comes to the materials of these. Of course, a tailor, when they run about, they're going to pick up their shrouded cloth, they're going to pick up their lightless silk from just doing their, worldly duties, but they're going to require an enchanter to make their enchanted lightless silk, so this is going to throw a nice little synergy in there. Maybe those players, Samadan, I'm thinking about you here maybe, that have their tailoring and their enchanter on the same character will see a nice little bonus for this. But we'll have to see. Like I said, material-wise, it feels very just default, very placeholder on the actual quantities of materials for these right now. Expect this to change. In alternative things, there's this random shrouded hand towel. I have genuinely no idea what this is really about. You get this super early on when tailoring. Once again, common theme here, it's not actually on the trainers. We can't learn or use this yet. Stay tuned for more information. But it seems really weird, right? Clean off blood, slime, dust, anything really on a 10-second cooldown. I don't know, is this, I genuinely don't know, is this like a decurse, maybe? I don't know. It's up to you to decide what this is. We'll have to do some testing to find out what it is. 3 pieces of shrouded cloth makes one of these. There's not a lot to report really on this, to be honest with you. It's just another thing to throw into the mix when leveling tailoring to give the profession a little bit more feel. Regarding the Crafter's Mark gear though, the Shadowlands set is going to be the target for you when it comes to the Crafter's Mark 3 and the Crafter's Mark 4. Exactly the same as previously, the basic cloth gear, the shrouded set per se, this is still being restricted to only the Novice Crafter's Mark and the Crafter's Mark 1 as it stands right now. It's the Shadowlands set that's going to be the one of interest for you for boosting its item level. I think this is going to be a regular pattern that we'll see through Shadowlands, that we won't get any new pieces of gear, we'll just get some new abilities to be able to bump the item level of each individual item. While we're on our tailor though, I guess it's sensible to talk very quickly about Inscription. The scribes out there, once again, another profession that's not seen a lot of love yet. The only thing that you would expect to see through these is, of course, there's the Vantus rune, Castle Nathria Vantus rune. If you're in the raid, if you get in there quick, if you can get access to this, you'll do well off it. That's a given. There's also, although it doesn't actually appear to be on the list, there has been data mined the contract as well for the scribes out there. The contract for the new faction, the Death's Advance, it was on the, if I remember rightly, it was on the Quartermaster only honoured reputation. Usually it's revered. Usually it requires people to get to revered before they get the ability to craft the contracts. And usually there's a small requirement that you have to at least be honoured before you can use the contract. We'll have to see how that pans out. But even though it's not on the unlearned list, it has been data mined that scribes are going to get a contract, as they do for most factions, but for the new Death's Advance. No glyphs still yet, unfortunately. It's something that is being shouted about, and people have been saying, where are our glyphs for our scribes? No glyphs to report as of yet, unfortunately. We can only keep our fingers crossed. Next on the list though, let's take a look at Alchemy. Okay, so we're here on our Alchemist. Alchemy has a few new cool things. The one to note, the big one to note, is that alchemists have got themselves a new transmute. It's called Stones to Ore. In similar fashion to as I've said a few times already in this video, that we don't have the ability to learn this yet. We can only kind of look at it from afar per se. Stones to Ore is going to be your daily cooldown to once again use some of this porous stone and the shaded stone that's basically kicking around with no real uses. Blizzard definitely feel that the amount of porous and shaded stone that is about, it needed some use, and so they've been throwing it at every new profession item so far. Stones to Ore though, it's going to take some of this basic crappy free ore and it's going to turn it into something more useful. We would hope that it would be quite a cool little goodie bag, considering it's on a daily cooldown. We would hope to see some both lace stripe ore plus a whole bunch of the zone specific ores, and maybe even some Elythium ore if you're lucky. It is going to come into competition though against your Shadestone Transmute. It's going to be up to you which one you do on the daily basis. My belief will be is that they will they'll have a shared cooldown. This usually tends to be how Alchemy works. The logic will probably be that during the main raid season, you're going to be smashing out your Shadestones on a regular basis, because that's when the demand for them is going to be. Maybe in the off season, if you don't really feel that you can sell your shade stones for much of a profit, you'll have the fallback option. Not to mention that actually getting the materials together for the shade stone, grinding some of all of the herbs can actually get relatively expensive. So the stones to ore is just going to be a cheaper variation for the alchemists out there. We'll have to see how this pans out, what we get in the bag. It's either going to be really, really good, or it's going to be just something we forget about. We don't know until we can test any further. You may notice here there's some blossom bursts, glory bursts, marrow bursts, and so on and so on. These appear, the way that it looks right now, to just be an alternative use for some of these ground materials. Through the leveling of alchemy, you have to grind up a bunch of herbs into these ground variation of the herbs, and up until this point it was only the shade stone that really took advantage of these. Outside of that, there was no real use for them, and it felt kind of like, well, why are we doing this? And I almost had the theory that Blizzard were just going to change the recipe for Shadestone and get rid of them. But this seems to indicate that they do have more plans going forward for grinding up herbs, similar to how scribes, for example, mill them. We'll have to see whether they're any good, though. These, for the moment, they're just a cosmetic thing. They douse your friend in a burst of colour, and each one is a different colour. So green, the blossom burst paints somebody green, glory burst paints somebody yellow, marrow burst paints them grey, torch burst paints them orange, and widow burst paints them purple. Seemingly relatively pointless, but just a fun little thing all the same. One thing I did want to point out, though, for alchemy, as of like what we mentioned earlier with Jewelcrafting, if we can use this crafter's mark of the chained isle on our alchemy trinket, this could become relatively potent for alchemists out there. Where is it? The spiritual, the spiritual alchemy stone. This, at least as the interface seems to indicate, we will be able to make an item level 230 variation of this. I would imagine alchemists are going to want to do this. This is a pretty cool trinket. The fact that it has the extra healing and the extra mana gain from your potions, was it a 40% increase? Yeah, plus the stat. I mean, let's be honest, a 230 trinket basically for free by crafting it. Yeah, I'd expect alchemists are going to be all over this like a rash. Obviously, you can't sell the spiritual alchemy stones. They are bind on pickup. But for an alchemist themselves, I would say if they can make a 230 version of this, it's going to be definitely worth their while. The question comes, though, is how quickly are we going to be able to get the pattern to craft these crafters' marks of the chained isle? We'll have to see. But that's basically what we've got for alchemy, and that for the most part is unfortunately all we have so far. There was a couple of cooking things, but I talked about those in the last video and they're basically worthless. So that's about it for the profession changes so far. The smart ones of you out there may have noticed that we've not said anything about engineering so far. Yes, unfortunately, Blingtron 8000 is not a thing yet. Keep our fingers crossed. Engineering will get it a little bit of love at some point, but it's not so far. So I'm going to leave it there for today's video, boys and girls. I hope this has been useful to you and helpful to you. If I forget to put the timestamps in the video, please remember to shout about it in the comments. I will do my best to remember to do that. But if you enjoy this style of video, remember to hit the subscribe button if you're not already. And for my regular viewers, thanks for coming back. And yeah, I'll leave it there. Enjoy the rest of your day, boys and girls. Happy gold making, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.